Going? Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt the intro right there. What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome to the quad. This is going to be the CSGO edition. It is December 22nd today, a few days before Christmas, so we're about to bring you some holiday cheer here. We've got three lovely lads, a fourth one over in the top left being myself, to talk a little bit about CSGO, the CSL, and some fun stuff going around the CSGO world. Obviously, I guess to start off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Cheeseheadlogic, aka Dan. If you guys know me, I do all the production stuff for CSL on top of some social media work and as well a lot of ship posting, like endless, copious amounts on a daily basis just to make it through. It helps you make it through. To my right over there, I got the lovely Mr. cdub, Conover Wang. How's it going, man? He is an SJSU player slash community manager for the CSL CSGO. How's it going, man?
Going good.
Have you taken like half a day to like stop complaining about being how busy you are?
Nah, dude. I'm not stop complaining about how busy I am, dude.
I'm just like I come into Slack every day. It's just like CDub's just playing. I'm so busy. I feel like I'm gonna die. I'm like, oh man, I feel so bad for you. Hopefully, get a little time to get a break in. In terms of SJSU as well, he is a champion. He might not look like it, but he is a champion. So, winning last year's CSL title crown 2015, 2016. Yeah, there you go. Nod your head. There you go. To my bottom left over there, I have got our writer, Mr. cslWater, aka Ahmed. How's it going, buddy?
Hello.
Soft
How are you
intro?
guys?
Soft intro. All right, I like it.
There's not much to say. I'm a writer. I love writing. You know, that's it.
Hey,
That's pretty much it.
sometimes that's all you need, and put out some really nice articles this year as well, which we'll kind of hopefully get a chance to plug them in as we go throughout the show. And down to the bottom right, I've got UBC's best Rocket League player, aka aka Danny Mahone. Everybody, how's it going, man?
Hello, guys.
That's what I remember. I was just like, I'm like, who the hell played from UBC? You played Rocket League, right?
No, it was Forza.
It was Forza. Damn it, I was close. Shit, I knew I was close.
I was like, what the hell is he talking about?
No, so when we were at PAX West, Danny helped us kind of open up our session. We started with Forza in today, and I just wasn't sure. I was just like, are we getting Forza players? And all of a sudden I see just like Danny pop up. I'm like, all right. I'm just like, all right, this is going to work out all right, I think. So today, generally, for those that are in chat, hello guys, how's it going? Hopefully you guys are having a nice little break, or you guys are off doing whatever you're doing by getting a chance to tune in today. We're going to be talking just generally some CSGO stuff like I was mentioned in the collegiate scene, CSL, and just kind of hopefully maybe get into topics that are a little bit more all over the place in regards to CSGO. Obviously right now a lot of drama in the NA scene, but we might get to that towards the end. Main thing we're going to begin with is just to let the guys kind of introduce themselves maybe a little bit more. cdub, is there anything that you want to tell us about yourself that kind of people might not know about you and kind of what you do right now?
So I am the CSL community manager. If you guys don't know, I currently do make the CSL training ground videos. It's one of my initiatives to kind of bring the community some knowledge that I think I can provide of the game. I don't try to talk about things like, you know, how to move with WASD, but maybe more something complex like bunny hopping or specific air strafing and the actual physics mechanics behind the game.
Sweet. And you guys can find that obviously at youtube.com/CStarLeague. There's a little training grounds, little playlist section, or even sometimes on the main feature if you go to the channel. Pretty fun. Obviously, some of the strafing and the bunny hopping I need. Especially when I hit those KZ maps, man. not always in comp. Ahmed, is there anything else like in terms of like filler stuff that people might need to know about you, how you're involved in the collegiate side, and you know, kind of your experience with it?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I'm very new to the collegiate scene.
Mm-hmm.
I was hired this year. But in terms of Counter-Strike, I think I've been playing all the Counter-Strikes so far. I've played 1.6. I've played Sword. Yeah. And I got into CSGO about like 2 years ago because a friend of mine told me about it. But he was relatively new to CS. So I ended up, you know, getting a higher rank than him naturally because I have some 1.6 experience. So,
Hey,
but
man,
yeah,
all the old school
other than
players.
that, yeah. Other than that, I used to write a lot as well. So, like being the passionate writer that I am, I saw the job description, the post. I was like, hey, I gotta apply for this. And thank God I got it. Because I love it. I love writing about CS:GO. It's so interesting to me. I watch pro games all the time, and yeah, it's been amazing so far. Hopefully next season is gonna be really good too.
Sweet. All right, Mahone, same question over to you, buddy.
Yeah, hey guys. I've been playing CS for probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years at this point. I've played probably every season of Collegiate so far, so I've been here from the start. I started with Counter-Strike Source and then moved over to CSGO when it came out pretty much, and just been, since going to UBC, just been involved with everything Counter-Strike pretty much, so.
Hey, that works. That works. Well, that's to kind of let you guys know a little bit more about ourselves. We got a few topics that we want to cover today. Obviously, starting off, first half of the season, the fall. We have finished now 7 games for most, 6 for some on some of the smaller divisions, but big division, a larger division one this year that we're working with, a little bit more involvement in some areas in terms of divisions and a little bit less in some other areas. Obviously looking at some of the standings and stuff like that, let's just go through those really quick. If you guys haven't opened that up, I'll actually toss you the link, that way you guys can follow along. And if you guys want to as well in chat, you guys can follow along as we kind of talk about this. Enjoy that. There you go. Okay, so from the first half of standings, we have UCLA running the West 1 at top, along UC Irvine. UC San Diego kind of trailing them a little bit. San Jose, I don't know, cdub, what you're doing right now. Somewhere there in the middle of the somewhere there in the middle of the road. We'll eventually get to talk about that, but a very kind of cannibalistic West 1 division this year. A lot more competition, and I feel like a lot of improvement on certain teams. I'm a little surprised that UCLA is doing actually as well as they are, undefeated, but kind of look at that. Going down to the West 2, UC Santa Cruz, 7-0. Right behind them is CSU Long Beach and UC Riverside. Not exactly a tough West 2 division, but a couple of teams that are fairly talented. Going down to the West 3, we got a little bit of a tie for first place between CU Boulder and British Columbia. Hey, Mahone. Sitting at 6-1. And similarly, no offense to the other teams, but a little bit of a lesser division outside of Ohio State, but for some reason they're not really doing that well so far. Coming down lower, we head over to the Midwest. UT Arlington and Houston, 6-1 and 5-2. Leading that division, kind of a little bit of a cannibalistic Midwest division as well. Probably UT Austin faltering there more than anybody else, but no standings that are like way out of sorts. Midwest 2, we got RMU leading the pack there at 7-0. They are recently a scholarship CSGO team that we'll maybe talk about here in a little bit as well. Right behind them is Illinois, so no big shocker there. And then we got Wichita State, Kentucky, K-State, Kansas, and Tennessee Knoxville. I feel like as we head like further east though in Midwest, some of the results, standings, and teams get a little bit obscure. I don't know, what do you guys think? Like, so obviously the West Coast, we kind of have a pretty good idea. Some of the Southern teams as well, maybe even some of the Canadian teams. But like, there's like this like chunk of the map in the Midwest, and kind of on the eastern and southeastern side where like you don't know what to expect, right?
I would have to agree and disagree a little bit. If you look at the North 1 and North 2 divisions, at least to my knowledge, I do believe that York University, University of Toronto, the Falcons of Montreal, these teams all happen to be powerhouse Canadian Counter-Strike teams, along with powerhouse esports teams. For instance, I know that Toronto and York both have decent, if not good, League of Legends teams, and I think as we've seen the increase in prize pool for the Collegiate Star League this season, now we're beginning to see more of that influx of competitive nature, and that's being reflected in the standings in North 1 and North 2 with these Canadian powerhouses really stepping up their game.
All right. Any thoughts on that, Water Mahone?
I'll let you go first, I guess.
Yeah. I was gonna say that I actually think some of the East teams this year are actually pretty good because there's some players on certain teams who are really good actually, and there's some squads that have they have a pretty good like average skill. So like all five of their players are all really good. So I mean I think that I think East is actually pretty good. I think it's tough to really say whether there's really a whether one region is better than the other.
Interesting. All right.
Yep. For me, I think some regions are a lot more competitive than others in the sense that the regions that are where one team or like two teams are completely wrecking everyone else. Those are just like those are bigger gaps skill-wise in my opinion. Whereas in regions like Midwest or East 3 or East 2, those teams are a lot more like close and they're a lot more competitive with each other, which is why this team wins over that team, but then another team wins over this team, and like it's a lot more close. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, I will take that into consideration, especially. I was about to say, I'm just like, yeah, it's just East Coast, Midwest, a bunch of no-name schools, man. Who do they think they are? The West Coast? who do they think they are? San Jose? Who are they? San Jose State?
Like West Coast, Best Coast.
I mean, it might as well. I mean, even Mahone could be pounding his chest like Canadian teams. Woo, yeah, got great talent. Yeah, going down the list, we have the East right now. George Mason, actually, I think this is a little bit of a surprise, leading the pack at 6-1, and then North Carolina State not doing too bad. But man, like some of those teams, you can't get exactly a good understanding of into who they are and how actually good they are until I feel they play some of the better teams, which I still think are on the West and North and kind of southern coast of all our conferences, but. East 2, West Virginia, Miami, Ohio, not Miami down in Florida, but Miami, Ohio, as well as also Penn State not doing too bad in the East 2 division. We go lower to the East 3, Rochester, leading the pack at 7-0. There might be an interesting little story with them. They actually look kind of decent when we've seen them this season so far. Random city of New York, Baruch College, 5 I have no clue who those guys are yet.
Baruch is one of those teams that
they got a squad,
right? And if you ask anyone from San Jose State, we've faced against Baruch in other leagues during our 2015-16 academic year run, and even before they acquired 2 ESCA Premier players, these players were very good aimers, very solid fragging. Maybe not necessarily the best team play, but just going in there and being able to hit shots, kind of playing the SJSU style. They were good at that. And now that they've added 2 Premier players, they're definitely a team to watch out. And to talk about the records in the first, second, and third seeds of each division, I wouldn't say to put too much into that. I think players and teams and people who are paying attention to the league should be wary of that because this is still the first half of the season, right? Championship teams don't necessarily always start off looking like they're the best team in their division or the league. They might be, 4th or 5th best or 3rd best, but it takes a whole season of developing and finding out where you stand within the rest of the competition to really determine whether you're going to be the champion or not. So it's too early to say and make judgments too early.
Interesting. On the north end, we head up towards Canada. We got York, Toronto, and Ottawa leading pack in the North 1. Ryerson's kind of fell off a little bit this year, as well as Waterloo. They're at the middle of the table. And then, of course, the North 2, a very interesting and peculiar division because it could be one of the best teams in the CSL. We got Montreal there sitting at 7-0, Minnesota right behind them at 6-1, and then Wisconsin and Laval bringing up the pack in the middle, and then a couple of the other teams like Western. I can't remember if Western did actually that good last year or not, but it seems like their record's a little bit lower than it should be. But overall, there is our fall standings. A lot of, I want to say, similar names that are synonymous with success. Only really a few have kind of fallen or slipped off, and as well as also a few teams that have actually, looks like, done a bit better this year as well. One of which being the West 3, which is where good old Mahone is in, with them and CU Boulder. How's that division been so far in the fall? Especially if you can even maybe speak on playing against somebody like CU Boulder, who's sitting at 6-1.
Yeah, CU Boulder, they're a team that practices a lot actually. Like, I mean, you can see that on their ESA page. They scrim a lot. So they're a team that comes prepared for the most part. We actually played our match against them on Cobble. It was a relatively one-sided affair. It was like 16-7, but they still had a lot of. You could still tell they're prepared. But we mostly just like shut down most of their pushes and stuff. And as far as the other teams, I don't know. I feel like Ohio State, even though they were really good last season, they just haven't really showed up to compete this year. Like they've just lost so many games against other teams.
Okay, all right. Over on the Western side, since we have a little bit of insight as well, how's the West 1 been so far for you, cdub?
I think the West 1 division has been relatively close for the games that we've lost and the games that we've won. Ultimately, it's not that surprising that UCLA ended up being top of the division, considering how my team, SJSU, we haven't been exactly logging in the most hours for Counter-Strike. And, you know, I can attribute that to everyone having their own changing priorities, myself included. And actually, if this isn't already common knowledge, I've currently retired from collegiate esports as a player for the time being. That doesn't, you know, completely mark it out that I'll never come back or never play, but right now I just have other priorities.
Yeah, I don't believe you for even half a second.
Yeah,
I retire. Okay.
right.
Yeah, I've said that before too. I remember, you know, I was just like, you know, school and life's really important back in the day, and then I'm just like, once actually like semester starts, I was just like, yeah, I'm coming back and playing right away.
But also, you know, that doesn't take anything away from UCLA. For instance, they recently got back a player called Oni-chan, who came back to school, you know, and now is part of the UCLA CSGO team. And, you know, the results are showing that now that they've, you know, swapped their IGL or after their IGL graduated, now that they have a new IGL, a new team.
Was that Will, by the way? Was that Will?
Yeah, that was Will.
See, I hope Will listens to this. See, you graduated and they got better, man.
Well, okay. I'm not suggesting anything. All I'm saying is that with Oni-chan being part of this UCLA roster, you see a definite improvement, and the record reflects that. Same with UCI. UCI has recently picked up a player called Strawberry. I've personally played with Strawberry a little bit from time to time, and I can definitely say that he is one of the better players within the CSL community. I can say that confidently as someone who's been around this scene for a little bit.
Okay, awesome. Water, on your side, kind of a little bit more of a broader scope question. Is there anybody that you really like currently? Is there any division or teams, or is there anything that's like kind of like standing out for you right now currently?
It's got to be Montreal, honestly, because of last year. I feel like they have this drive to win it because they were so close last year and they lost to SJSU. They have pretty much the same roster. I think they changed one player. I don't remember exactly.
I think one of the brothers graduated or something. I think that's why.
Yeah, I think that was it. But that momentum is behind them. That they practice a lot, and they're very skillful players, and they play together very well, especially since they've been together for a very long time. So they're definitely a team to watch out for this year. Besides them, RIT. I mean, not just because I recently wrote about them and made an article about them, but because when I was talking to Talon, who was their in-game leader, he really did convince me that they were like almost like a professional team. They were practicing consistently. They were scrimming other teams consistently, and they had this team effort of bettering themselves. Each team member would tell the other what he was doing wrong. They wouldn't hold back, you know. They would be super serious about it. They all want to be pro someday, or at least they have that dream of theirs. Yeah, and I feel like that's some amazing stuff. Honestly, if you are that driven, then you will go far. They are gonna go far this year.
Do you think, or if I may?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Do you think that because of the increase in because of the increase in prize pool this year, you know, we're going from a $10,000 or $5,000 total prize pool for Counter-Strike.
5 million
to now 50,000, right? Do you think that kind of attributes to the kind of drive that's motivating students? Because I remember as a player, that I went to college and I initially thought, oh, I'm not going to play Counter-Strike like I did in high school. You know what I mean? But even just the thought, even hearing 5,000, right, got me to like, wow, I really want this, right? Like I was putting in 40-hour weeks my freshman year of college to play collegiate Counter-Strike. Do you feel like that's something that Talon kind of showed to you, that maybe that this kind of money is and this kind of potential, right, for collegiate esports is really a driving force behind their work ethic?
Talon mentioned that he thinks that this is a very important motivator for teams to come out and try their best to win. Personally, I didn't ask him personally if this was the biggest motivation factor. I don't think it is, from what I've heard him say. The other thing I think is that I was never a college player or a pro player, but I feel like when I'm watching pro teams, the ones that are motivated to win regardless of prize pool, regardless of what they're gonna get salary wise, they're the ones that do end up winning. I feel like that motivates you even greater than money, because you want to be the best. You know, that is a bigger motivation than just money.
I agree with that.
I don't know if I answered your question.
All right, cool. Moving forward, what do you have for us, CHL?
Well, I mean, when we're speaking about commitment and play, obviously, I think of SJSU first, especially this year. I was just like, as you were talking, as you were talking about it, I was just like thinking about it. I'm just like, who fits that description right there? But overall, yeah, no, for myself personally, just to hop in there, I am honestly just a tiny bit surprised that UCLA has actually just been doing that well. Very happy to see one of my home state schools, CU Boulder, doing really well. Just because Colorado generally hasn't had like a huge esports influx, as well as also the teams haven't been like that great over the years. Me being personally one of the players like way back in the day that kind of helped bolster up one of the University of Colorado's, and Boulder was kind of there, but they never really were great. But this year, like not only just in CSGO but Dota 2, they're doing a lot better, so I'm very happy to see that. Do any of you guys know much about York up in Canada in terms of their players and their roster?
They have actually, you got it.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm pretty sure York has Wardell on their roster, and I think he played some Premier, and he played just the season of main, and they won, and their team won. So I think they definitely have a lot of skill with just him being alone in the lineup. I think some of the other players are still pretty good too. So
fun fact is that they have not lost with Wardell playing any of their matches. So the only loss that York has is when Wardell was not on that game.
Really?
It's true.
Yeah, I just looked it up right now to confirm.
Interesting.
Yeah, they also have Dr. Mr. Fish too, and I think he's a pretty good player too. So in comparison to the rest of the collegiate scene.
So are we in all agreement that this year the competition has gotten like at least a little bit better, right? Like teams have gotten better, players have gotten better.
Anyone who disagrees doesn't know what they're talking about. Competition definitely has risen.
And is there, I don't know, do you guys consider there's a specific reason for it, or do you guys think it's just a general year number 2, so anybody that missed out on the opportunity got in, or teams are just practicing harder because they want to do better? Do you think, I don't know, do you think it's the money?
Well, look, I think one of the things that really drew people, especially these ESEA Premier players, is that, the collegiate scene now provides more money than main or IM or any other CBO ESEA division, right? The fact that collegiate esports at this moment for Counter-Strike provides more of a prize pool potential with less commitment is actually insane, right? Because you're playing maybe a match a week versus two matches a week, and you have a chance to win $50,000 or if you get first place, it's like what, $20,000, right? But first place in ESEA IM is like $4,000, $5,000, right? I mean,
might even be less.
I mean, maybe I'm a cynic for saying these people are motivated by the money, right? But if they were there just to win it all, they would they'd be playing every league. But I think now, because that money is there, that's a big draw, right? I remember like people hearing, me as a community manager when I was promoting the league, I was posting the fact that there was a 50,000 collegiate esports league. People were literally thought I was scamming them. People thought it was a scam. They didn't believe it.
Right? Well, yeah. So, I mean, that's our long game. That's our long game. They just don't know about it.
Right. They don't know about it.
We're gonna go full NCAA. You know, first we're gonna get them. Right. We're gonna suck them into the league. Then we're gonna use their talents and their rights, and then we're gonna make all that money off of them and give nothing back.
People couldn't believe that there was a $50,000 prize pool for collegiate Counter-Strike. Even I couldn't believe it. I jumped out of my seat when I heard about it.
What about you guys? Down at the bottom, down in front.
I think cdub touched upon a really good point, which is that I think a lot of these teams don't play in CEVO or in ESEA tournaments because they are predisposed with the CSL tournament. But I think that's also to do with the fact that these are all college students, right? They have a lot of other obligations, and if they were to focus on one tournament and be really good at, you know, like just practicing those teams, it would have to be the $50,000 prize pool.
Make the most money possible, right?
Yeah, but they are college students, so I don't think they don't necessarily have that time to play in every tournament.
Right.
But I think there is a correlation between the ones that do and the ones that don't, which is the ones that do end up at the top because they do have that experience and they play against hard opponents like constantly. All that, and yeah, they end up being more fit, you know, to getting the top prize pool. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, I guess something I want to add is there's like two types of teams in collegiate. Like in terms of like at the top, you get the teams where they actually practice together and actually scrim together. And but you also get the teams where they don't scrim together at all, and you just have like powerhouse players, right? And they just try to like. They just show up for matches and just try to play, right? I mean, some of them are really successful. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, what was it? Baruch is one of those teams where they don't scrim with toy and food. Like, they don't scrim with them at all. Like, those guys only show up just for the match. So, I mean, there's kind of a fine line where it's like, you get some teams where they have to be good and they also have to practice, but you also get some of those teams where they're already really good from playing, you know, ESA, IM, or main or premier, and then their raw skill is just better than everybody else, you know.
But one thing I would like to add to that is the teams that are like Baruch or even myself for San Jose State last year, right? Even if we aren't practicing, you know, we're not putting in the 20-hour weeks for team practice, right? Personally, I know for a fact that every individual player was at least putting in like, you know, 20 hours a week of individual play. Myself, towards the playoff stretch for all of the collegiate leagues, I almost put in 100 hours for the 2 weeks for every 2 weeks, right? And like, I think to Mahone's point where he talks about teams like Baruch, these players are still putting in time, right? But they're focusing on just they're not focusing on how to throw the perfect team flash or how to execute the perfect strat. They're focusing on more on like, how am I going to headshot to do the first time I see him, right? Like, that's what they're working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
what I was gonna ask is, isn't Toy in rank S on ESEA?
I will check that right now, but I would believe it.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
He is?
That's insane, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Doesn't he get to play with like NA pros in that rank?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably how he practices.
So it's not bad. Well, okay. I mean, generally looking at before we start getting into hypotheticals and stuff like that, has anybody surprised you guys so far? Is like for me personally, I kind of mentioned mine. Has anybody surprised you so far this year?
In terms of like performance last season, like in comparison to last season, or just
compared to last
set of the players.
I mean, just in general, like compared to last year, how they're performing this year. Is anybody underperforming as well? I mean, is there a question? Is there that question? SJSU, you can hold on. You can hold on just a second.
Before you guys try to destroy my team and myself, right? I would like to say that I feel like there were a lot of skeptics of RMU, Robert Morris University. Mm-hmm. The fact that they were introducing a scholarship program for collegiate Counter-Strike. It's not that nobody wanted them to succeed. It's just that they were skeptical that they were, going to have this kind of success.
Is there a reason to still be skeptical though, just because of their division?
There might be, and there's a reason to be to be reserved in how before you say, oh, they've done such a great job, right? Because this is still the first half of the CSL season. Ultimately, what matters is making playoffs and going deep into the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. But it is a good sign that they do have a top-seeded team in their division. And it shows that there should be more investment and this should be taken more seriously, right? Like, RMU is putting the time to have League of Legends scholarships, including Counter-Strike scholarships. UCI recently gave out a huge League of Legends scholarship to some of the players across the country. They actually poached a San Jose State League of Legends player to go to their school. And I think now we're slowly going to see more schools slowly transition and be more willing to, invest in collegiate esports. And it's a good thing because honestly, I want RMU to succeed because this ultimately that means like schools like UBC, these private and public schools will begin to really seeing the potential of collegiate esports, right? And the fact that they're doing that as a separate institution of the NCAA is also a great thing. And I know for a fact that CHL would agree with me with that.
Yes, and we can kind of even get into that topic, like dive into it a little bit later down the road, because it actually, within the ecosystem, when we talk about kind of how everything else is going in the CSGO system, etc., we can that's going to have a factor, especially in the next 3 to 4 years. There's gonna be some weird things going on. Guys, it's okay to cut people off on a podcast. Like, it's fine. Just keep the conversation. We don't need to. I'm looking at you guys like apologizing in chat. Like, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. It's fine.
It's really funny.
Nah, man. These Canadian people are just too nice.
I know.
Too nice, man.
Canadian blood, man.
Funny thing was, it was hilarious. I was just in Vegas over the weekend. Spent with some time with our World Gaming partners that are all Canadian. They're from Toronto, and so it was just really funny watching how very apologetic / very passive aggressive even when they're upset at things like when we were at a blackjack table and stuff like that, even when we get bad cards, the rest of us are just cursing the dealer. The Canadians are being really passive aggressive. They're like, oh, it's fine, you could give me those if you want. God, all right, but all right.
I like that in Counter-Strike too.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy it because I usually end up, at least this half, I've talked to Montreal quite a bit for the matches and stuff like that, and they're just really careful to make sure check and everything is going good, and they're a lot of fun to interact with. On your side, Water, anything that sticks out to you?
It's very hard to be surprised at the results, especially since it's very early on. This is just the first stage. There's also spring season where people will get different opponents, and we'll see how that goes. And also because there's a lot more competition this year, as you said, and that means that everyone who got to playoffs last year, we don't really know if they're getting to playoffs this year. Aside from the few powerhouses at Montreal. Montreal.
Yeah.
He's plugging that team so much.
Yeah, I know, right?
But there is one team that kind of did surprise me, because early on I was watching their match record, and I thought they seemed very dominant. They were beating teams, I think 16-3, 16-2, and that was UT Dallas Comets.
Yeah,
I thought they would stand out later on, but they didn't really get better results in the upcoming matches. So, yeah, okay. They really surprised me there.
Okay.
Aside from that, I can't really think of anything.
All right. What about you, Mahone? Anything? Are you surprised that UBC is 6-1? Why are you not 7-0 is the real question.
Yeah, it's a tough question. We had a rough match on train, essentially. I don't even know why, really, but it was a match that we expected to win, and we just didn't come to play. That's pretty much it. But other than that, I think in terms of surprises, I think the real surprise really is the amount of practice that teams are putting in this season compared to last season. You look at Montreal, they barely scrimmed before. They scrim all the time now. Look at UCSC, they played a little bit before, but they scrim all the time now. Another team, UCI, I see them scrim a lot as well. So I think the bigger surprise, in my opinion, is that a lot of these teams are putting in way more practice than they did previous seasons. And RMU, I think large reason why they're so much more successful this season is because they changed like 3 or 4 of their players and got players who are much more experienced, much better players than they had before.
Mm-hmm. All right. We'll take that and move on with that. Looking at the future ahead for springtime, obviously still a little bit of question in mind because we don't have the shuffle yet that has happened. So for those that are not familiar with the CSL format, first half of the season they play their in-division games, which are very regional based, and based off that performance they get seeded into a shuffled division with other teams from around the nation and all the CSL. Which is very interesting to see compared to last year. I feel like it was really good for some of the West Coast teams once they got shuffled in, as the 3rd, 4th, 5th seed, especially those like 3, 4, 5s that got shuffled into other divisions. They managed to work their way up to the 2s and 1s pretty quickly last year, as far as I remember. Do we see that probably happening similarly this year when that happens? So, for example, kind of to go a little bit further into that question. So, for example, like a UC San Diego, they're at 5-2. They go into another division mixed with some Midwest teams. Do you see them, rather than having to face a UCLA or a UC Irvine, are they going to probably have a little bit of an easier time managing and getting to the top of the division?
You can go first. I'll talk last this time for once.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
To be honest. Oh.
Oh, okay. No. Go ahead, guys. Take the floor is yours.
No.
Okay.
I guess honestly.
Too nice, man.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
I think it could happen, right? But the thing is just that I don't know what region it will be. That's the difference this time, because you have so many of those teams on the East Coast that I think you have no idea how good they are, and you also have no idea how good the West Coast teams are. I don't know if there's really been that many like scrims between those teams to really know in that sense whether one region is weaker or stronger to draw that kind of conclusion where like a lower tier team is going to be able to do better in the second half. So I think it could happen, but I don't know what region it'd be.
I mean, just to cut us all off, is this even a topic that we should be even covering until we actually see the spring divisions shuffled out? Like, I think it'd be really hard to actually like get. You're right.
I think we could talk about it a little bit, but I could talk. In the past, players have came to me as a community manager and have complained about this format. The fact that we have a division, like a regional based first half of the season, and then we're going to mix it up based on record and seeding for the second half. But I think what this enables us to do is really to determine who's the top of the top in their region, right? And then once you get to the second half, everything's just a question mark, right? Mahone is talking about everything's just a question mark, but that's the beauty of it, right? You don't know what's going to happen. Everyone has to be on their feet. Everyone has to stay alert, stay on top of your game, right? You can't play the first half of the season and get comfortable after being 7-0. No, you don't know how good RMU is. You don't know how good UCL is, but they're the number one of the division, so you better watch out, right? So when those two titans do collide, these teams have to stay on alert. They can't just be smooth sailing and coasting through the whole division the whole season. And I think that's the beauty of it, the fact that 2017 is just a whole bunch of question marks.
Mm-hmm. One thing to add there is I actually like the idea that teams get mixed up, because I know League of Legends last year, they always based it off region, right? And then one of the things that always happened, UBC and SFU would always meet each other in the finals just before the big LAN, and UBC would always win, even though SFU would probably be one of their toughest opponents, like even after like winning everything, right? So I think I like the fact that it actually does get mixed up, because then you're theoretically getting out the top teams rather than just the top teams from each region, which might not even be the best 8 teams, right?
Interesting. But do you think again, I guess we'll pull this topic out from the bonus part of it. Do you see value right now as like, if outside of like, don't worry about saying anything bad about the CSL, be critical in this regards, but do you see value in the fall season? Is there some value right now, or does there need to be more incentive or some kind of connection to the fall, that way teams aren't maybe taking it as easy in the fall time compared to the spring, or maybe not taking it just as serious, or maybe they just don't really care about it. You know, there are some teams that are just kind of winging it week after week after week because they know that they're going to get shuffled in the spring, and then that's when they need to, you know, start training, taking it serious, practicing, etc. So, like, I guess Mahone, I mean, for UBC side, is it just one of those, like, for a team like yours, does it factor into it? Does your team care, or do you guys just, you know, play the same way that you do in the fall that you do in the spring?
I think because it's collegiate, it's slightly different in the sense that not every school is going to have the structure to get 5 players in the first place, right? So that's why the fall season kind of helps in that sense, because it's like, you know, maybe you have 10 players or something and you want to figure out who the best 5 are, right? So you at least have that time to figure out who those players are, right? And then it pretty much gives, you know, schools the opportunity to give people a try in like every match if they want to do that, right? Some teams that are more structured, like UBC, we have tryouts, so we kind of determine who our 5 are and just try to get as comfortable as we can with each other throughout the entire season. Hopefully it pays off at the end, right? So there's two approaches that schools can take with the setup it has. So it pretty much lets schools, you know, try stuff out and then not be so punished for it that they, you know, they can't make the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well said. Do you have anything to add, Ahmed?
I think I would, with what Mahone mentioned, I think I would go with the latter, which is to try to get as comfortable with each other with the roster you have as possible during the fall season, and then you'll have that comfortableness with each other in the spring season. You know, you'll be used to each other. You'd have practiced with each other for a long time. You'd have played games. You'd have that team synergy, if you will. That's just my opinion, though.
So I think this format has benefited me, so I can't complain about it. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about me is actually initially I had joined the team late for San Jose State, late in December of 2015. And initially I was going to be benched, right? But because of this format, and as you know, my team began to figure out they didn't necessarily, didn't have the right fit for their starting 5, that, you know, they would need to incorporate other people, or at least give the opportunity for some other people to step up, like myself, right? I initially started playing for Team B, and ultimately it wasn't, you know, a very happy time for me, right? We were barely scraping by some okay teams, and I wasn't content. But I think that format, like how Mahone described it, enables players who aren't initially given that shot to be part of that starting 5 right away to be given an opportunity to step up later on. And ultimately, you know, the results showed for 2015 and 16 that, you know, that benefited San Jose State a lot.
Okay, I mean, you guys are way more positive about it than I am. Damn, I'm like you guys make me feel you guys make me feel cynical as hell. I'm just like, when I look at like when I look at like other leagues, I'm like,
okay, obviously, like here, I have no problem playing devil's advocate, right? Obviously, the team that has the set 5, right, is ready to go all season long. It's like, this is a waste of time, right? But ultimately, the league's structure should be catering for everyone else, right? It doesn't hurt the team that already has a set 5. In fact, it gives them more time to practice and get synergized.
Okay, we'll check this out. Down the road, hypothetical, collegiate sports, it keeps growing, keeps getting bigger. Eventually, the end road is everybody is scholarshiped up. We got real programs, real teams formatted. We're talking they're practicing in the off season, you know, getting ready in the summer, early fall. Fall time starts matches. When all that is set in place, when there's enough of an infrastructure for the actual schools and the teams, would you want there to be more value in terms of like synergy between the fall and the spring when that time comes around? Like right now, while everybody's kind of, you know, doing what they're doing, fine, but do you see how it's something that might need to change once the infrastructure kind of surrounds that part?
So in my opinion, similarly to how, you know, football or basketball works in the NCAA, is that these seasons aren't year-round, right? Basically, you know, I would say that CSL is kind of like a year-round esport, right? Mm-hmm. League and Counter-Strike, Dota 2, these sports run all the way from, you know, early September to late May, right? So it kind of is a year-round affair for a lot of us. And I think one thing that would happen is, as this sport becomes more legitimized, you would see two matches a week.
Did you just say sport?
Yes. Esport, sport, whatever you want to call it. I'm don't care how someone wants to argue about it, because I can see it both ways. I'm not going to bug out about that. But importantly, whatever you're calling it, esport or sport, you're going to start seeing the games being played at a faster rate. I would say, 2 matches a week to make the season more swift and also to make things more efficient.
Okay.
All right. Just something to add to that. When you talk about established, like how established are we talking about? Because I'm envisioning like a world where I don't know how long it's going to take to get there, but if you think about like sports, like in school, because they're in person, there's home games and away games, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if we get to the point where literally every school has their own esports facility with all computers, and then you literally have to travel to that school to play your match every single time, right?
Ooh.
Are we thinking that far ahead? Because that
that's
a lot of things.
That's an interesting topic. I was gonna say like somebody has like I was gonna dick everybody on the servers. I was gonna be like, you got to play on the UBC server. that way you got 50. They have like 5 ping. You got 50. Like no, that would be interesting. I think it can go down that road though. I mean, the thing is when you're looking at like sports, you got to realize like football program, you have like 60, 70, 80, like usually at least for travel, you have at least like 50 something that are traveling. Basketball, you have a whole team, a roster full of coaches, staff, all this stuff like that. Regardless of how like NCAA programs are set up, the individual schools, their programs, like all the sports programs and athletics, it costs them a hell of a lot of money. Esports, it really won't, even when you include travel and stuff like that.
It's the low cost kind of esports, what you want to call it, in contrast to a football team, right? Because a football team is like 50 plus people and staff. You're not even including like the offensive and defensive coordinator, a head and assistant coaches, right? And then there's all kinds of logistics go behind it. Whereas esports would be like 10 people at max.
Yeah, I would probably say like right around there. But I think that is a little bit like more like 10, 15, probably closer to like 15 years down the road before like every university can actually manage to make that type of thing happen. But in like the short term, just like the fact that like, hey, programs are scholarshiped, you have players that you're bringing in already before the summertime. They're going to be your students. They're going to be your players. They're practicing together. Your program is official. You're not figuring stuff out anymore. You know what your team is at. You guys are expected to win, perform, and your scholarship under there. Would you prefer to have a more formal competitive format that isn't more kind of choose, pick, and figure out, and then eventually the real part of the competition begins starting up? Or would you prefer to have a shorter season at some point in time, like say just have it just have the spring side of it where you just play the actual spring side, maybe more games, or maybe a little bit more of an elastic schedule that lasts a little bit longer? Because that's one of the interesting things is it's like, is the full year concept, like, does it take too much of a toll on even the online players? Yeah, it's only 1 game a week, but it is across 14 weeks plus potentially playoffs, plus potentially finals. I mean, we're talking stretching from October all the way to May even. That is a pretty long time that no other collegiate athlete really has to deal with, outside of maybe some practices and outer commitments. But their seasons are usually 3, 4, 5 months maybe at most. We're talking big time commitments. So is it like if you could like dream up of like how everything would be ran or how you would see it, like what would you guys prefer? I guess I'll start with you, Mr. cdub.
So I think the clear distinction between esports and like an NCAA is that players aren't bound to that one league, right? So for instance, an NCAA player isn't going to be playing in an NCAA player is going to be playing a EuroLeague basketball, college basketball, and all of those things, right? But a collegiate Counter-Strike player might be playing in multiple different leagues, and so if they are doing that, it is definitely a time commitment, right? Like ESCA, CSL, or some other collegiate leagues, right? And not only that, I mean, there are people who were crazy enough to think they could do multi esports, right? When Overwatch came out, people were like, "Oh, I'm gonna do Counter-Strike, I'm gonna do Overwatch, and I'm gonna somehow fit in like Hearthstone or League of Legends," right? Like, esports is one of those things where you can really play a lot of these games, and it's a huge time suck. And so, an alternative solution that I think is when you get to that point where you're playing two games a week, now you can have these tournaments run on separate seasons. I know for a fact that CHL had mentioned to me in person actually one time, is one of the things unique about CSL is that we actually reach out to other leagues and we try to coordinate different times. At least we do our best to. And that's something that benefits the player and also the league.
Just one thing to mention, since you just brought that up, something I'd really like to see happen maybe next season is have the maps actually line up with some of these leagues, like ESCA.
Yes.
That way, when you 100%. Scrim, you're not just swimming against other collegiate teams. You have many more opportunities to swim against other teams that are likely just as good or better opponents.
And for any of the viewers watching who happen to be players, there will be a kind of poll or survey for you to voice these opportunities or voice these opinions to us at the end of the league. I always say this all the time.
You don't have to wait till the end of the league. I'm one of those guys. Like, if
you can talk to them now.
I'm like if anybody has suggestions, if people have issues, like, please talk to us. Like, we're open ears and we're looking to improve and always more so try to help facilitate, the rules, the settings, the format, everything towards the community. I mean, last year, I'll admit, like, for year number 1, we shit the bed a little bit. Like, we had bad servers, we had a little bit of a bad format, not everything was up to standard. And I mean, me coming originally from a player's perspective, I care, you have to care a lot about the player integrity because that is the player experience. That's why they're participating in the league. I mean, I hope, like, this year, we're not exactly where we need to be yet, just yet, but we made a nice little jump to improve and hopefully make things at least like currently a bit better for the teams and the players. So, Ahmed, on you, man. What about you? Dream scenario. How would you like to see some of the how the CSL operate or kind of how some of the scene operates, especially down the road when it gets more established?
My dream is sort of very unrealistic, but I'll say it anyway.
Go for it. This is esports. This is esports. We live in unrealism, man.
Yeah, I would like, instead of 2 seasons, 1 in fall, which, like you said, some teams wouldn't really care about. I would like, instead of that, I would like 2 offline tournaments. I don't know how this would happen, but I feel like ping is an issue, is an actual issue for all these online best of ones happening between these teams, and I feel like if somehow CSL were to grow enough to have 2 offline tournaments instead, that would be.
I can just imagine it already. Imagine flying in maybe the top 50 teams into a like Staples Center, right?
There you go. Now we're talking.
Yeah, like maybe Staples Center or Madison Square Garden, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that'd be crazy, right? Have like a 4-day LAN where everyone just fights it out for a round robin to find out who's the #1 collegiate team. That would be insane. Make it happen.
I was about to say, I'm like, you think the female-only tournaments get a lot of shit for like popping up at like Madison Square Garden or like at IEM Oakland. Just wait until you see these top 16 collegiate teams. They're like, what rank are they? They're not rank S. Like, get them the hell off the stream. Like, no, but hey, by then, hopefully everybody will be right around there. Probably, hopefully.
Yeah. I think the competition's increasing like every year. It's gonna.
I mean, obviously, with more infrastructure from the schools and more infrastructure from our end, those type of things are theoretically possible, and actually would be kind of cool to see more offline competition, more regional competition, where just stuff like ping isn't a problem, where we have more interaction face to face. Where I'm assuming the majority of these teams are just sitting around, not actually playing even in the same room. They're just on TeamSpeak. So having that bonding, having that synergy and coordination could also be a very, very big thing. I do see, by the way, before we continue, I do see some of you guys are asking some questions in chat. Hold on to those for just like a tiny bit. We got a couple more topics that we want to cover, and then we'll do kind of a little bit of a Q&A towards the end about everything going on. I see some of the PSA topics. Yeah, that's a fun one. We could talk about that a little bit. But all right. So in terms of everything right now, how do you guys see kind of the collegiate CSGO scene, like between the CSL, maybe I don't know what NCESPA's doing right now, to be honest, but everything else, like, are you guys like okay with where it's at? Where do you guys want? Where are like some of the immediate improvements that are needed, and where is it good? Where is it bad? As a player, as a coordinator, as a whatever, as a writer, like, what things would you like to see improved on to make it better, and what things are you good with, what things are just generally really bad? So, Ahmed, I'll open it up to you.
Is this specifically targeted towards CSL or
no? This is just general collegiate CS:GO. So,
okay, well, that's actually a tricky one. I feel like it's definitely improved a lot compared to last year. One thing I would say should be different is actually I don't know. I'll let cdub take this
you
one
want to
first.
take a pass until we come back around? All right.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
So, like you said, we've definitely made the step in the right direction. I think, kind of third-partying the server management to CSGO was a big step for us. I'm sure players like Mahone and myself have been very appreciative of that alone, right? Just the fact that the servers actually are functional and like working well and don't have, huge VAR, that's good. But ultimately, the league still has to make steps in terms of maybe how the match scheduling works in terms of organization. I think there's been quite a few things with teams messing up scheduling. And I think also collegiate CSGO kind of needs more recognition. And I think this is going to be a constant uphill battle because if you think about it, collegiate League of Legends is something that every esport or other esports should try to chase after because they have huge money involved, right? Like usually out of all the collegiate leagues, League of Legends is the most invested league, right? Is also usually the most viewed league. And I think there's some things about Counter-Strike that needs to be kind of implemented to kind of fix that. And maybe not necessarily like this kind of talks about the overall game as well. Some of the things that have kind of been bad for the game is that Valve is so focused on monetizing everything, changing how to maybe putting gun skins, or now you have like special spray paints, but they kind of ignored the fact of actually fixing the game. I mean, Mahone probably remembers the ladder issue, the jump scout issue, all of these things. The fact that the CZ and RA were actually things in the game of Counter-Strike. These are things that you don't mess up on, right? And I think ultimately when Valve changes that, you're going to see that trickle down to the collegiate scene too.
Okay. What about you, Mahone?
All right. Since I've played collegiate for a very long time, I guess I have a lot of insight on this. Collegiate CS used to be really small. Like I played in the very first season of it, and there were probably only like 40 teams or something like that at the most, right? At the most. And then CSL was the first league that did that, right? And then the prize pool was like $500 or something, right? And then from that season, right, that was strictly all online. And then when it came to the second season, the one improvement they had was, there's a LAN at the end, right? So all the teams that were playing the first season wanted to play in that one, and then additional teams are like, okay, we want in on this higher prize pool. I think it was like 2K or something like that. And you also get flown out to a LAN. And then now for the third season, now that's when CSL stepped in. Now, they say, you can go to DreamHack, right? And you get like a 5K prize pool, right?
That was crazy.
That's a pretty big jump, right? And then now we're at this season, which is probably the fourth year that I've played in this league or collegiate. And now it's like, okay, the prize pool is like 50K. And then the event is like, there's a LAN event, but I guess can't be disclosed yet. But yeah, it's a big jump every time. And then we also see that with the competition, the skill level of collegiate every season it gets better and better and better, right? Before, in season 1 of collegiate, I think there may be only maybe 10 players total who played ESCA beyond IM, maybe, right? And then now we're at a point where it's like there's a lot of players that play ESCA. There's a lot of guys who play IM or Open or even Premier at this point. So it's something where collegiate's growing, and it's something where you just have to keep having improvements or keep having incentives for players to constantly come in, right? And then with all the schools and all the, I guess, esports organizations that go in, that try to do more with it, you're going to see that, they're all going to help each other in the sense where it's like, okay, we're all going to figure out, what the best way to approach this league is, Is it better to have a year-round system? Is it better to have a fall thing? Or is it, all that stuff will slowly get ironed out.
All right. And if we come back to Water, is there anything that you would like to see?
Yeah, I would love for there to be more clubs revolving around CSGO in some of these universities.
Agreed.
I'd love I'd love the players to get more involved. You know, start making, you know, the clubs and like start convincing their classmates that this is an esports and it's getting big, and you know, this is the future. It's not a sport.
It's
you know,
a sport. It's a sport. Damn it! No, I'm just kidding.
It's not exactly like a physical sport, but it is an esport. You know, there are pro teams playing and competing for prize pools, and now there are collegiate semi pros, I would call them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, just in order for this scene to grow, I feel like that's a condition.
Okay.
Which is more clubs in these universities.
Okay. Well,
the other thing,
I was going to say in the holiday spirit, if Santa Gavin just, you know, was sitting there in his big chair and he could sit down water on his lap, and you could give him one immediate wish that you would want to see for Christmas in the collegiate CSGO period. What would be kind of what would be like the immediate thing that you would want to see?
Sorry, what was the question? All I heard was Santa, and I immediately blacked out.
I was gonna say, if you had a wish of some improvement that was like immediate right away to help the collegiate scene, what would it be? Just something like immediate. What would be the number one thing?
Valve funded collegiate league the same way Riot does it.
Just 128 tick servers, honestly. Like. Oh wait, sorry. You guys do have 128 tick servers.
Yeah, for matchmaking.
I was about to say. I was about to like, yeah. I'm like sending Alan a message right now. Like, what kind of stuff? Like, we have 128, right? Like, are you making our players play on 64? You ass.
No. My bad.
I was like, God. I was like, are we such assholes? Like, damn. I thought we were trying to improve already. No, all right. Yeah.
No, man. Like I said, I just want because me as a writer, I really do try to. I know it might not seem like it, but I really do try to get some of these players and teams' attention, because I know they do work hard and they do they bust their asses off to compete, and not a lot of them get recognition, and not a lot of them are known as well as the others. You know, so it would be like an ideal world where like all of them are known. Like it's a direct correlation between skill level, placements in playoffs, and the recognition they get, you know. But sadly, this is not the case, and you know, I'm at fault for not writing constantly about all the teams I want to write about. But you know, I'm trying my best.
That's all we could ask. What about you? What about you, cdub? When you sit on Santa's lap and think about what you want in CS:GO, what would you wish, young man?
When I was 3, so don't go there. But if I did have one wish, it would definitely be like kind of like a mainstream attention to the collegiate CSGO scene. You know, I think one thing that I've definitely seen, especially after working with CSL for the last, I would say, 5 months, is that a lot of people are pouring their heart and soul and their time and their commitment, and a lot of these people have put in like sweat, blood, and tears into getting collegiate esports to where it is now. But the reality is there's going to be so much more blood, sweat, and tears to get it even further. And I would hope, you know, if Santa could just make that one wish happen, or it happens to a flick of a switch, that this thing grows, that would be my wish.
I mean, generally speaking, itself, like the collegiate side is, I feel like it's pacing fairly well, just because of some of the expectations and some of the enormous amount of money getting thrown towards the pro side. You would maybe, you know, have an expectation for, you know, maybe to grow a little bit quicker or bigger, but you got to realize, like, some of the, you know, from all the way to the origins of sports or something like the UFC or something like that, like, who the hell knew about like some of these things like back in, you know, in their first 10 years, in their first like 15 years? Like UFC wasn't really a huge thing until like the later 2000s. Like it wasn't until this like decade alone where it got really big and popular and into the mainstream. So it does, even with an enormous amount of money, it does take time to develop, and I think it's just going to be one of those things where the universities are going to realize we need these programs. They're very feasible too as well. It's another opportunity to attract students. Obviously, with esports viewership and its growth, it will be a big selling point for, you know, whatever case it is, and it will get there, but it will need time. So taking the steps, obviously, I feel like we're in a good direction, but it will take a little bit of time to get there. All right, now, let's see, what else do we have? General thoughts on CSGO currently at the moment, guys. How the game is running, how the game, how the meta is, balance, stuff like that. Are you guys enjoying it right now? Or, ooh, I already see some shakes. Why not? Water, go ahead. Why the shake? Why
matchmaking?
Matchmaking. Why so?
Yeah.
Explain to me. If I was a League of I was gonna say if I was a League of Legends player watching this podcast, why is CS:GO having a hard time in matchmaking?
Well, as a scrub who doesn't get to compete in ESA or CEVO, I can tell you matchmaking is hell for people like me because one, we get a lot of Smurfs. Even in Prime, we get a lot of Smurfs. And while people can say, I mean, I also say this a lot. I say if you're against a Smurf and he's beating you, you're learning, right? You're sort of learning. You're losing, but you're kind of getting the whole like, okay, he's peeking me here. I should like counter peek or like flash or do that stuff. The thing is, if it's a huge gap, like if I'm in MGE or MG2 and this Smurf came from like Global Elite, you can't really learn because you don't know what he's doing. Like he's just headshotting you. You don't know how to deal with that. How do you stop someone peeking you and headshotting you with an AK, which is a one-hit headshot?
Yeah.
You don't understand how to deal with a global elite. That's one thing. The other thing is, this is not as big of a problem in Prime, but hackers are still a problem in CSGO. They've always been a problem. Valve aren't really doing much to fix the issue. Like if I'm trying to get LEM or DMG or LE or whatever, and I get someone on my team, even when this happens on my team, like trust me, I do like leave or try to team kill him. But when I get a guy like spinning around, like looking at all angles, like just shooting people randomly, like it's frustrating. It's not the game I want to play.
So you guys heard it. If you see on Overwatch Water, he is griefing. That is the option that you want to click on. All right, cdub. What about you?
Can you rephrase the question just so I have it like 100% clear in my head again?
Just generally, like, how do you like the state of like CS:GO right now, like from gameplay to balance to meta stuff like that?
I've never really been a fan of some of the actual like deep gameplay changes. I think sometimes like you've been so accustomed to how the game works at certain points that changes can be negative. I think the AK change has slightly negatively affected my play because I'm very used to that spray. They've kind of nerfed spraying, which is, that's fine, and increased tapping, but I don't really see every other player playing like Scream. I think that, that kind of gameplay change has catered for one player versus the other. I think some of the old changes were good, like the op change, which was a while ago, where they nerfed the movement speed while using it, is good because now you're taking less of the game into individual playmaking and attributing it to more, rifle team play, right? And that's important because I think one of the things that a lot of people, the biggest difference between an FPS versus a MOBA is that no one can carry a game solo in a MOBA. Ultimately, you need 5 people doing their fair share of work. But in Counter-Strike, like I've personally won 1v4s at LAN. I know other people who've won 1v5s. I've had teammates just completely just win around by themselves, right? And so yeah. Right now, I'm not too happy, but I could be just kind of an oldie. I mean, one thing I didn't like CS:GO when it first came out too. Like I played 1.6 for majority of my years with the game, so
I guess this is a little bit of before we head down to Mahone. In terms of maps and stuff like that, are you guys enjoying the new Inferno at all?
Not really.
I like it.
I miss the old Inferno so much. You have no idea.
I think we all do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, is it a map that even in its state would it be ready to jump into the CSL Spring map pool and possibly replace Nuke? No, nothing.
I want to say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to say yes.
I'm not sure on that.
I have no comment. I just don't know what to feel, honestly, about that. I just don't.
Because I mean, the reason I ask is because again, the spring is coming up pretty shortly. It's a little under a month now, so if there is a huge push from the community to get Nuke moved out and replaced with Inferno, it has to kind of happen sort of fairly soonish, especially on the community side. It has to be pushed by the players and the teams, or you might be stuck with Nuke for another 7 weeks during gameplay. And I don't know if every team wants that. I know it was by far the most hated map during the whole entire season. So, and casters obviously hate that too as well, because literally bomb sites are like almost stacked on top of each other, so you can't tell where everybody is at certain times. So, Mahone, but for you, how's gameplay, meta, balance, all that? How's that going for you right now?
I know some people don't like the changes, like that Valve does to the game, but I kind of see it differently in the sense that I used to play CS, like I used to play Source, right? And this probably applies to 1.6 as well. But I know people complain about like the pistols and stuff like that being like really annoying, but I actually don't mind it, because if you think about how CS used to be, whenever a team was on an eco round, it was literally almost impossible for the other team to lose it unless they screwed up so badly where it's like impossible, right? Like you can't die to a guy who has to shoot you like 6 times with a Glock, right? But now in CSGO, it's like I think it makes watching matches more exciting. Might be more frustrating to play, but I think when you spectate it, like every round is not oh that team's winning for sure. Like
Right.
It's very unpredictable now, right? Like even a 3-5-7's a scout and a famous buy, that still has potential to win the round, right? As opposed to before, where it's like you'd be like, that's just stupid. Like, why would anyone invest that kind of money? You're not going to win with that kind of equipment. But so that's why I'm actually a fan of some of these changes that CS:GO makes. Although it makes it a bit frustrating to play, I think it makes it more interesting where it's not that predictable.
Okay.
I have a question for Mahone.
Yep.
Is that how you feel when someone peeks a corner with a 5.7 and headshots you?
I'm usually the person that does the 5.7 shooting.
He actually is.
Okay, now I know why you feel that way.
Yeah, I'm like on water side. I'm like, when I run around with like a 5.7, I'm just like firing just like sporadically. I basically like pepper spray the ball, like the outline of my like opponent, rather than when I get popped with one shot. It's like, it's so annoying.
No, but I mean, even in that case, like I mean, there's so many random things that happen to me that I get frustrated a little bit, but I just kind of accept it though. That's just the game. Sometimes you're in that position where you do that to another person, and they can just as easily do it to you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's kind of a little bit more of the balance and stuff like that. Just kind of looking at the rest of the topic list and stuff like that. Is there any like immediate patch that you would like to see? Something reworked in the game? I don't know. Do we need more gloves? Is there do we need do we need boots now? Like, do we need more? What do we need? Do we need anything in the game right now?
I think we need hats. Just do it, Gabe. I know you're gonna do it eventually. Like,
ultimately, I think we need. Sorry to cut you off, but ultimately, I think we need like just map fixes, more new maps, right? Mm-hmm. I think that one of the biggest game changers for CS:GO was a cobble rework recently, right? The amount of attention they put to cobble really kind of changed the game, made it more interesting for players and viewers. Because one thing that is true about a game like Counter-Strike is, after a few months it can get stagnant, right? Like I feel like 2015 or 2014 the meta began to stagnate, and that forced Valve to make the changes that Mahone described that he liked.
I guess something I'd like to see, maps. I actually like the fact that Valve rotates the maps like every 6 or 8 months or whatever it is, right? Because it keeps it interesting where teams can't just always rely on that map being in the pool and then just being dominant on it, right? You actually have to switch up your map pool. So I like that a lot, and I hope they continue to do that. Something I'd actually like to see is decoy grenades being more useful than they are right now, because right now you just buy decoy, it like nobody takes it seriously. Like it doesn't do anything.
You mean
except,
somebody's
like, a fake flash.
you mean somebody's not obnoxiously spraying a P90 over there?
Dude, imagine if we had like some like next gen Counter-Strike where a decoy like put a hologram of a CT or TC.
Well, I mean, something I was thinking with the decoy grenade. I don't know if Valve is ever gonna watch this video, but they should make it where if you have a decoy grenade, right, and you throw it, you should have like this kind of remote button that you have to pull out to activate it, right? So say you throw a decoy at like upper B on Mirage, right, and you go A ramp, right, and then you pull out this thing, right, and you activate the decoy so it shoots out, you know, a clip however you want it to, so it's not, you know, the decoy shooting now, but it's just a guy spamming like in an irregular pattern that nobody shoots in. Right?
It's more of a problem, right? It's more of a problem. Like you decoy, like the time when you actually hear the decoy grenade, there's a better chance you realize that they're actually not there than they actually are there.
Yeah. So I was thinking, you know, if they had like a remote decoy system where you can control how it shoots, and then but you have to pull it out that way. You know, if some guy peeks you, you have no shot of like killing him, right? I think that'd be something that makes the CS like way more interesting, the use of decoy grenades. But in terms of balance, like I don't know how that's gonna work, or if that's gonna make T side super unfair, or like I don't know. But that's like an idea that I'd have for a decoy grenade to just make it a bit more useful than it is right now.
What about you, Water? Nerf the 5.7. I mean,
the...
improve 5.7 accuracy, right? For you personally.
Just to touch on what Mahone said about decoy grenades, I think I'm sure everyone has seen this before, but I think the only like slight use that pro players use with the decoy grenade is when they have an op. They just throw it like directly where they are, just to kind of, you know, like try to fool the enemy. If like they hear an op sound, oh, he's shot, you know, I'm gonna peek, and then I mean, it rarely happens, but sometimes it does, you know. I wanted to also talk about map changes, and I'm sure we all agree that Inferno looks way more beautiful than it used to, right? The visual update is really nice, right? And what I'd really like from Valve is to have a visual update without any actual changes to the map itself. Like, I would love Dust 2 to be visually updated. I want it to look like, you know, like what Inferno looks like. Obviously, they're not the same theme, but, you know, sort of like that, but not like, don't just like narrow long down or like, you know, change catwalk or whatever. You know, just keep it the way it is. And
Ultimately, something like Inferno was where Valve had listened to the community and pro players about Inferno being way too much of a CT-sided kind of map, right? I mean, it was very easy for any competent team to like abuse smokes from CT. Like from CT spawn, you can smoke off the end of banana or smoke the top of T stairs, right? Like these smokes are all possible, and these are things that Valve wanted to fix, right, for the community and to change things up. Ultimately, what ended up happening was, you know, Valve didn't succeed as well as they could have. To some people's opinions, you know, some people also like it. I think as long as they keep making these attempts and if they do it more often, right, and if they listen to more feedback, that they're heading in the right direction.
Okay. I like
the thing about that is, I feel like a lot of pro teams would just play Inferno always. Like it was in everyone's map pool, you know, despite the fact that it was
not
so
Cloud9.
Well, you know, besides them, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so even if it was a problem, like when Nuke replaced it, nobody really put Nuke in their map pool. So that's what kind of confuses me about that.
Some of our worst games this year have been on Nuke. I'll be honest, like watching some of the broadcasts and some of the games, like some of our worst games this year have been on Nuke by far, not even close. So me personally, even just having like a little bit of familiarity with Inferno, like I think it would even improve the gameplay just on itself. But I do agree. I don't know if the CSGO community is though that like hung up on like visuality. Like you could probably put a CS 1.6 like visual map in, and we'd still play on Dust 2. Like still.
Not me, man. I wanted 1.6. I'd play 1.6. You know, it's still out there.
Well, I don't know if we have really that many other topics left. I don't know. I guess we'll somehow tie this into the CSL, but I don't know if you guys know about the PEA stuff that has happened kind of over the past week. Basically, PEA is the play. I think it's the Professional Esports Association, and they're basically the WISA of North America. They have TSM, Cloud9, Team Liquid, CLG, Immortals, NRG, and Complexity, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's those 7 teams, but basically they signed them to kind of how the same way WISA signed over a lot of the European teams, and they basically try to get them to sign something in exclusivity to play for their own league and stuff like that. Just general thoughts on that. Do you think right now in its current state it's a good idea to try to force teams and players to play in one exclusive league and prevent them from jumping ship over to other leagues and kind of, I guess, maybe potentially reducing their opportunities, or if it's a good healthy opportunity to start building a league up, or just a consistency that you'll see from one area? Danny?
I like the fact that teams can go to different events and stuff like that, just because I don't know. I like that aspect. I don't want it to just change into just everyone just plays in one league and then that's the be all end all, right? But at the same time, there are way too many tournaments going on where it's like literally like every weekend you see Cloud9 playing, right? It's just like, why should I care about this tournament when there's one next week, or the one 2 weeks ago, or the one that's going to be, there's just way too much to follow right now. But I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I also don't really know of a better way to address this problem.
Unfortunately, because this is a professional industry now for these individuals, especially the owners of esports organizations, I think ultimately, if the only way to kind of represent your own interests is to pull something like what PEA is doing. Now, I'm not saying what they're doing is correct or good for the league or good for the players, but ultimately it's also like important to understand that this is now just like it's not just about the players, right? Ultimately, there are business orgs that enable these players to make a living playing video games. So I don't know necessarily too many details, but I also believe that the PEA must be doing this for a reason if ESL isn't representing everyone's interests equally.
Water?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm fairly ignorant when it comes to these kinds of discussions. But I will say that there has been some discussion about WISA. WISA is the European one, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There has been some discussion, I think, about whether it dwindles players' rights or whether it doesn't. And I just I'd like the players' rights not to be affected, because some of these orgs can take advantage of players and, reduce their salaries and whatnot, and like force them to stay on teams. It happened, I think it happened once or twice this year, didn't it? To I can't remember who.
Well, I mean,
oh well.
But I mean, look at it this way. Right now, basically, what PEA is saying, hey, we want you guys to drop out of EPL, the ESL Pro League, and guess who's associated with the ESL Pro League? ESL, and they are in partnership with it, or at least they have people on the board of WISA, which is basically the PEA version of for Europe for the most part. So there's a lot of weird stuff like that, especially with teams saying that they're not aiming for exclusivity, but they still, team owners seemed okay with it. And when players spoke out about it, like Sean Garris, he basically just got cut from TSM, if I'm not mistaken, for the fact that he spoke out about it. But it's like you have owners being like on two sides of the fence, or saying, yeah, we don't want to be exclusive, but it's like our players spoke out against it. Like, you can't speak out against it. It's like our job. So it's a very interesting dynamic. I guess the way to tie this into the CSL is like, if NCESPA or the CSL, we wouldn't do that, but would you leave a league if they tried to force you to play exclusively CSGO just on theirs, on their tournament platform, rather than being able to pick and choose and play however you want? Or is there a certain point and extent or a certain level that you would like to see out of a league, provide or give before you would make a choice before going exclusive to a certain league?
I think League of Legends or Riot did this, I'm pretty sure, with ULOL, or actually whatever it was called before. But I'm pretty sure they made it where it's like teams that were qualified weren't allowed to play in other collegiate leagues. So I guess to those teams that qualified, it was worth it for them because you got so much money for playing in it, right? But I don't know. It's kind of it's up to the players or like I guess the schools in the sense where it's like, well, I mean, do you like I guess for those teams in League of Legends, it's like, well, if you're playing in the Riot's thing where it's like 180K for first, and then are you gonna care about playing in these other leagues that only offer like $5,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it kind of depends on what kind of incentives there are.
What about you, Mr. cdub? Would you like to see a certain exclusivity at a certain point in the collegiate side if it was provided, or do you like the fact that there's just the capability to pick and choose and do whatever you want, really?
I think, for instance, if there was like a $200,000 collegiate Counter-Strike league, it wouldn't be a bad thing, right? But if it was, say, like 3 leagues that both offered similar prize pools, I think that would be a problem. Because then it's less justifiable, right? Because ultimately, then what are you saying that what are you providing that's ultimately better, right? Like, I don't know too much about the PEA situation. I don't, and obviously there's not that big of a issue in collegiate right now. But ultimately, it should be an equal representation of the owner's interests along with the player's interests. And I would like to draw a parallel to something like the NBA. There's something now known as the new CBA deal, which is enabling players to get paid out. I mean, some players might be getting $240 million for 6-year contracts. And so, and the owners are still getting what they want, right? Ultimately, as esports grows, you're going to need to have representation of both the organizations and the players, right? Owners and players will get what they want, but there has to be somewhere where they meet in the middle. It's never going to be my way or the highway, and it shouldn't be that way. If that's the case, then that's not where organizations or players should go. That's the wrong direction.
Water?
Like I said, I don't really know much about PEA or WISA, so yeah, I just don't want players to be taken advantage of. That's it.
We're trying to do our best not to do that. we're trying to do our best to do that. We're trying to actually give you guys money and for your efforts and time. So, well, personally myself, at the current state in time, there is absolutely no reason, especially in the collegiate scene, for any exclusivity at all whatsoever. Nobody's offering. Can you guys think of anybody? Nobody's offering a good enough package in a length and time and like a need to be able to commit to one league for the whole entire year that blocks you out from other options, because there are other options right now currently to play. And so that also I think is good, because sort of the whole competition aspect where you see one league doing this or one league doing that, and it forces each league to get their shit together and basically improve as well, because they can't either fall behind or they want to try to be the more attractive option. I mean, it's one of the things, like for the CSL, I could speak on it. So I pay attention closely to most of the time to like in CESPA, what everybody else is doing over in TESPA, whatever, all over the place, because we want to offer the best opportunity, and we kind of sort of learn almost from each other and kind of compete to provide the better product for the players. But all right, guys, before we head out, let's do a tiny bit of Q&A. Chat, if you guys have been holding on to any of your questions or want to know anything about CSL, if you want to ask about Mahone, feel free to ask. If you want to know anything about cdub and why SJSU is only 4-3 and you want to get it out of him again, this is a perfect time to ask. We'll kind of be keeping our eye out in chat. But I mean, while we wait and see some of the questions, Danny, do you see UBC probably playing about very similarly, around 6-1 to 7-0 come springtime, even with the shuffle, even with the uncertainty who might be there?
I can't say, but I mean, we've scrimmed some of those teams at the top, and I'm confident we'll be up there as well.
Mm-hmm. I think SJSU is going to make a little bit of a recovery.
You know what? All I can say is don't count my brothers at Tennessee State out. I got some insane people who can flip a switch. So, don't ever count out my team.
We have seen that. We have seen that. You guys actually, when we were coming into playoffs, you guys weren't the hottest team like coming into playoffs, and you guys, as soon as playoffs started, you guys like turned on a switch and just started whooping the shit out of everybody. It was a lot of fun to watch. So I know exactly what you mean. We do have one question. Any of these guys who are not CHL play Dota? Do any of you guys play Dota?
Played a little bit.
Not at all.
I suck. 100% I suck, but yeah, I played a little bit.
I'm a League scrub, man. I can't play Dota. Sorry, it's too hard for me.
As every League player. To Mahone, why do you think pugging isn't a good idea?
Oh god. The thing with pugging is that, at least ESEA pugging, is that people aren't really playing to actually win. So you're gonna see these people who are like making these plays or doing the stuff that doesn't even really contribute to the win. Some people might not even be playing to some people might not even be trying to kill people in ESA pugs. I mean, some people are going to try doing this kind of stuff where it's just, you'd never do it in an actual match. So it's just like the kind of CS that you shouldn't really practice or really expect to play against in a lot of situations.
All right.
But that's all I did my freshman year when I was playing a lot of Counter-Strike.
My argument would be you could be even better if you did more than just pugging.
Mm-hmm. There was an earlier question. I actually scrolled up to find it. In terms of how do you guys feel about the Twitter post that Sean Garris is being replaced because Reggie wasn't happy about the players' right post? Do you think there's still a lot of miscommunication in the pro scene between just like owners and players? Like they're like not on the same page and feeding them all the information and everything that's going on? Because like for like this PEA thing, it seems like for some reason all the players were talking to the players and like all the owners were talking to the owners and the PEA, but like nobody actually talked to each other like in between there. Like, do you think there's still like a big rift in like the professional side and management with some of these teams and players and everything that's going on? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. I also think that you go ahead, cdub.
It also doesn't hurt that Reginald's notorious for being one to be like very conflict oriented with his players. I mean, I recall when he was playing on and still very involved as a leader for TSM on their League of Legends team. Quite often he would be getting into arguments with his own players, and quite often he would be putting people on the chopping block and kind of threatening their position within the team.
Well, I mean, I think it is definitely very interesting because right now, obviously, professional players and stuff like that, nobody has a union to work with, so it becomes very complicated. But I think they found a decent voice, at least, having Scoots kind of write everything out and kind of phrase everything properly as best as possible, and then having the players more than anything sign off, not the actual teams. In the current state, I don't think it's good either to have the exclusivity on the pro side. So I can't really Charles, I see in chat, I can't really shit talk the players. I think they're doing a good job of standing up right now. We're not in a place where exclusivity should be a thing. Does that create more oversaturation all the time? Yes, but oversaturation isn't really a bad thing currently when you have teams that might not be able to compete here, so that opens up an opportunity for another team to play and potentially win more money. So I think right now the pie is actually getting spread out fairly nicely, and the big teams are still getting all of theirs and then some. So I think it's going to come a place in time where the infrastructure and the offer and the structure in itself for exclusivity is going to be there for those players to partake in. But for the current time and place, I think they're just going to be their brand and their image is going to be used and kind of abused, kind of like it has been in the past by other attempts sort of like this. You guys have anything in mind? Thoughts in general? CSL, collegiate CSGO, anything like that? Nothing really.
Let's answer more of these questions.
What do you I think this is one question. Around what level is the top tier collegiate in terms of ESEA league?
Ooh.
That's a bit of a tough question, but I think some of the top teams in collegiate could probably compete in like a high IM tier, I think. Because I think there's some teams that going against like IM and main teams, and they don't do too bad. Like they're decent. and a lot of the players, a lot of the players or some of the top teams in collegiate, they have a bunch of main players, or, in Brooke's case, they have 2 premier players. So I don't know. I think it probably lies around a high IM to main skill level.
I would agree. I would say it's like a high IM level to a low to mid main level. Like I don't think we would have anyone top seeding main. And the only reason why I say that is because, the one thing that is true about collegiate teams is that you have these individual players who are amazing, like Baruch's, Toy, and Food. But as a team, they might not necessarily be on the same skill level. So that kind of medians out to right around high upper level IM to low to mid level main.
Okay. Any thoughts on that, Water, or more so agree?
I'm not at that level, so I don't think I can say much about it. So.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I couldn't really speak on it too much. I just have a general idea of where everybody's at. So, what else do we got here? Do you guys think Overwatch will take over CSGO in terms of the player base and competitive scene? Ooh. Let's see these elitists comment on this one.
So, player base, yes. Competitive scene, never.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same thing.
I think that's fair. That's fair to say. Obviously, CS:GO, the competitive scene.
We're biased. All three of us.
I mean, there is a bias, but I think there is, some substance to the bias because the competitive scene for CS has just been around for so long and has such a rich history. It's like saying, even though StarCraft, is dead in the dirt right now, doesn't mean that there isn't a huge, enormous history and is still a competitive scene that's driven itself to last and survive this long. For almost 2 decades now, or over 2 decades, I think overall. It's just an absurd amount of time that's put into it. So,
and I can answer that question like extremely confidently because I've played both games relatively competitively. Like actually, over the summer, I got addicted to Overwatch. Like that's all I played, and like I got like in the top 500 ladder for North America over the summer. And I can tell you, like ultimately, in terms of the competitive experience, like Counter-Strike is still way better.
Mm-hmm. You mean you don't like running and shooting all over the place, like crazy, healing everybody?
I mean, that's what I do in Counter-Strike, but it's different. Yeah.
I think there's also in terms of viewership, I think Counter-Strike is a lot easier for newer people to understand and get into. I think Overwatch is so complicated for people who don't understand what like Tracer or Mei is supposed to do in a competitive team, or like Reinhardt, okay, you're supposed to shield and like, ult or whatever. But all these characters that are available for you to like pick and choose, it's so complicated for people who don't understand or haven't played the game to get into it. Just
even observing that damn game is hard. When we were in Vegas,
actually. Yeah, for people who know it.
We were at the MLG event there watching it, and like damn it, even when the best camera you could go to is the pull-out camera, the one that sees like a bit of a distance, so you could actually see what everything is going on, because it's hard to keep track of 12 players. But even when you put it on a first-person view of Genji slicing around everybody, flying all over the map, it's so hard to just follow and see what the hell he's doing alone. Like, yeah, the game's gonna have to figure some things out before it grows bigger in terms of the competitive scene. But viewership, just because it's marketed so well and it's a Blizzard game, it has a lot. It still has a lot of upside to it. But I agree with the competitive scene. That's never gonna overtake CS:GO, at least on my end. Do we have
Toy plays collegiate? I just want to point out as well that Kusta actually played collegiate before he went pro. He played on Rutgers for like a whole season back in like Ancestral season 1 and 2, I think. So I mean, who knows? Maybe one of us will be there one day. I don't know.
These teams have gotten in cahoots with Azubu. God, I miss those guys. Great collusion and colluding atmosphere over there at Azubu. I don't really see any 2 other questions, so if you guys want to get them in here as we kind of get the final words in, please do. Guys, obviously thank you for coming here and giving your time to talk a little bit about what's going on in the CSL and the collegiate side of CSGO as well. I'll give you guys each your final words, plus what you're going to be doing for the rest of break and holidays, how you're going to celebrate. Water, on you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thanks for having me. It means a lot as a writer that people want to hear my viewpoints on the game and like the collegiate scene. And also, I hope a few of you cynics out there can see me as someone who actually, plays the game and understands a bit about it, rather than just someone who like takes what people say and like writes it down.
How are you going to be celebrating? Going to be doing anything big?
Sorry?
How are you going to be
Christmas?
celebrating? Christmas, New Year's, like what are the holiday plans?
Well, I'm going back to Egypt tomorrow.
Oh shit. That's pretty cool.
We don't really celebrate Christmas, but
Hey, that's cool. Like, just going to Egypt alone, I think it's going to be a lot cooler than probably any of us have answers for already.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have a good, safe trip there and back. We do need you back for the second half of the season. Don't stay there too long.
Yeah, don't worry.
cdub, what about you, man?
Once again, thankful to be a part of CSL just in general. My experience with the organization has been great. Couldn't ask for more, honestly. And, what I'm going to be doing for the break is actually right after this call, I'm going to go packing on a flight down to San Diego. So,
sweet.
Damn.
That was some fun.
I love me some San Diego. Man, what are you doing up in San Jose? How'd you... That's what you need to do. Go to UCSD and start up support the CSGO program.
I didn't try hard enough in high school.
That's why you're a good CSGO player. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah, not anymore.
Nice. Well, hopefully you'll have it. Well, what am I talking about? You're gonna have a fun time down there, especially weather-wise. It should be good. I love San Diego right around this time too as well. It's really nice. Not too hot, not too cold. Hopefully it won't be too cold. Not at least LA like levels of whatever weather. But Mahone, what about you, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Shout out to all my teammates, UBC Esports. Also shout out to our sponsors, NCIX, Wang, Corsair, Aces Republic Gamers, Twitch. And I guess for my plans, hopefully if there's more snow in Vancouver, it snowed like really hard recently. Maybe I'll build a snowman or something outside. I don't know.